Hello there. Every week we bring you conversations that shape our nation. We comment on the decisions that define our democracy and the people who pull the strings behind the headlines. This is Politics on Sunday, where power meets perspective and the issues are never off the table. I am Femi Akonde. Tonight we sit down with a man who has been at the heart of politics and governance in Kogi State. He served alongside Governor Yahaya Bello, and during that time, he was part of key decisions that shaped the state's direction. From his years in public service, he has witnessed firsthand the challenges of leadership, the complexities of state politics, and the expectations of citizens in a democracy that is still evolving. In this conversation, we will reflect on his time in office, lessons from governance at the subnational level, and his thoughts on national issues, from leadership and security to economic management and the politics ahead of 2027. My guest is the former Deputy Governor of Kogi State and is also a member of the governing board of the Southeast Development Commission. Mr. Edward Onoja, welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you very much.
And it's good to see you again.
Yeah,
well, I would say you were, should I say, off the radar for a very long time after you left government, and then we just started seeing you back again. And you know, when at the inception of your administration, that of you and Governor Yahaya Bello, expectations were really quite high. You know, you guys were young, you came with so much vigor, but you know, at the end of the day, people were not, these expectations were short-lived, especially with the whole controversy about management of resources in the state. How would you defend that administration against all of these allegations?
Thank you very much for having me. And to start with, you said I've been off the radar.
Indeed.
Yeah, like I said before, it's a period of reflection, rest, getting back with family, spending quality time with loved ones. Having served 8 straight years.
Yeah, government.
And those 8 years were tasking, and you needed to have some rest. I liken it with the case of David when he went to the cave of Adullam to rejuvenate, reform, and then to get back. So that was the period I needed that rest. And I'm out, and the question you just asked, young people getting into governance, private sector experience, public sector experience, blending together, and then bringing it on the table for the service of our beloved state, Kogi State. We did our very best, to the best of our abilities. We ensured young people got into government, people who would have never been given a shot or a chance at governance. And we reformed the state's civil service. There were lapses, there were issues, but at the end of the day, the Kogi State Civil Service nationwide today would stand as one of the best based on the reforms that were brought upon that civil service and that system. The pension system, all were revolutionized for effectiveness and efficiency. Yes, expectations may differ, perspective may differ. People would have their ideas of how we governed, the style. Like I would always say, time would be the judge of it all. And then when you talked about resource management, I would say every government or public officer has their schedule and job description. I served as chief of staff and I served as deputy governor. When it comes to financial management and resource management, as the case may be, those will be questions for the accountant generals, the commissioner of finance, and those who were saddled with that responsibility.
So are you then saying as deputy governor you were not neck deep involved in decision making, or does that then justify that saying that deputy governors are just like spare tires? You were not particularly involved in policy.
I'm the vice chairman of the State Executive Council while I was the deputy governor, and every project that was brought to the State Executive Council that were approved are physically on ground for Kogites to see and Nigerians to see. They are there as approved by the State Executive Council. But I served, and I'm always available if the authorities want to ask questions on any matters.
Well, along the line, I would say politics, came in between yourself and your principal, and you guys fell out. That relationship turned sour. And over time now, since after that administration, we've seen you trying to repair, or should I say, yes, we will see you trying to make amends. I saw your visits to the former deputy governor, also Simon Achuba. How significant is this, and what do you seek to achieve from this? Are you trying to launch yourself back into the politics of Kogi State by, going to seek forgiveness, restitution with the former deputy governor, Simon Achuba? Because you were also accused of, being responsible for his removal as deputy governor at that time when you were chief of staff.
Politics is deep. And you need to straighten the facts at the appropriate times. I was very reluctant in wanting to take his office. And I have witnesses to that. I spoke to members of the State Assembly as at that time that it was unstrategic to take out an Ibaji deputy governor when we are going to an election that I'm a running mate. The Ibaji people could do a protest vote against our system, and that we are already going to take over government in January was the rush. Yes, the idea and the notion pushed out was that I orchestrated it.
Indeed.
I needed to straighten that out with facts, figures, and names that can be verified. So myself and His Excellency Simon Achuba, we are on very good terms. He was my predecessor. He's older than me. He's more experienced than me. He may not be in the APC today, but for us to align politically into the future, I'm a stakeholder in APC. If I would want him to support my candidacy of Mr. President in 2027, I need to first build that bridge. And it's those bridges that I'm building.
How about you and your former principal, Yahaya Bello? Are you guys good?
We're good.
You sure?
We're good. We served together to the very last day, wished each other very well, and then everybody went on his new frontier.
Since after that time, we've not seen both of you in public together.
Everybody was resting. I was resting, like I said. I just came out just August after my 51st birthday, which was just August. And we met in Jos. We shook hands. We greeted. Yeah.
How about the government of Usman Ododo? Do you support that administration? And
Absolutely.
How closely are you working with them? Because you are a major stakeholder in Kogi State and also in Kogi East. And this is a very strong voting bloc. As a former deputy governor, you control a lot of influence in that region.
Yeah, myself and the current governor of Kogi State, His Excellency Ahmed Usman Ododo, are doing on very good terms. I don't need to always be upon him to tell him what to do. He's the governor. But at the sideline, I counsel, I advise, I commend when he does anything great and good. And we communicate. I was in his house to condole with him recently. So we are on good terms. There are no issues. Talking about Kogi East, yeah. We will continue to talk to our people. We'll continue to try to build trust with our people. The last 2023 gubernatorial elections, my people made a very clear statement. And the statement was, treat us well, treat us with respect, treat us with decorum. We have the numbers, we can do and undo. And they made that statement very clear. So going into 2027, we'll continue to want to bridge that gap. We'll continue to build that trust. We'll continue to reduce the tempers so that we can continue to sell our party and the platform that I stand for.
That statement you say your people made, how loud and clear were they able to make that statement? And has there been some form of, would I say, change, especially with the way the current administration now is treating them?
Absolutely. The current governor's humility should be commended. In the run-up to the 2023 elections, terminologies were used on the great people of Igala Kingdom. On complimentary words were used, and it pushed the people together, and they made a statement. So it's in the wisdom of the current governor to continue to show humility, listen to us, and then do the things as he ought to do. It's too early to assess his government by January 2026, when he will be 2 years midterm, we can then do some good assessment. But in the area of welfare of civil servants, he's done greatly. And thanks to Mr. President's increased revenue to states and local government that have made every other state to be able to meet their staff and salary obligations to the civil servants in their states. In the areas of trying to reduce the debt burden on the state, he's done very well. I've commended him on that. And I would only encourage him to tap into the strengths of the experienced, retired, serving military personnel from Kogi State to deal with the issues of insecurities that are rearing their heads in the various parts of the state.
All right, indeed. We'll just take a breather now. We'll go to issues of national importance, but that will be shortly after this quick commercial break. Earlier, we were talking about politics in Kogi State and his role in influencing decisions in that state, especially when he was deputy governor. But before we went on the break, you talked about your political party, the All Progressives Congress, and you also talked about Mr. President, how he has increased allocations to state governors, and that has helped them meet their obligation. But there's still so much emphasis, or especially concerns raised about what state governors are really doing with these allocations. We're still seeing poverty. The poverty rate is still high. Yes, we agree that inflation is stabilizing, is thinning out, but there's still unemployment. There are still some economic issues, and it appears as if it's the subnationals that are not doing enough with the resources at their disposal.
The state governments, you wouldn't lump them into one basket. You would say some state governments are doing very well with the resources that has been coming to them since 2023. I do not want to list them, but in terms of infrastructure, I would say some state governors are doing excellently well. Others need to do more with that resources to show and complement the effort of the federal government. But the real issue is really not with the state governments. It's at the third tier of government.
At the local government.
At the local government. And to me, Mr. President has bailed the cat through the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice. He went to Supreme Court. He got a judgment and a declaration that yes, autonomy is supposed to be granted and it should be full and final, both financial and administrative. The rest is left to the citizens.
But we're yet to see a full implementation of that.
Citizens' actions. The President has done his bid. He does not need to take a whip on governors or local government chairmen. Citizens, I come from a local government. Soon, I'll be asking questions, and I expect other elites across the nation go ask questions about resources coming to their local government and how they are being utilized.
Some people say, there's still a joint account operated by the states and local governments where the local government do not have direct access and absolute control of their resources. They still have to report to the states. And that's what is actually hindering the implementation.
Solution still lies in the hands of citizens. Say, for instance, you get 500 million, that's $500 million every month to a local government. And 1 year down the line, you can't see projects on ground. Elites and citizens from such local governments, freedom of information, request to see what's been done, and then if you can't get viable answers, you know what to do. And if that begins to happen across all the local governments, I tell you, you'll begin to see progress in the local governments.
Your party, the All Progressives Congress, especially when President Bola Tinubu came on board, he introduced some bold reforms that caused a lot of hardship. But the administration says these reforms are necessary. Now the administration is saying that these reforms are beginning to yield results. But the question is, where are the results?
Okay, I'll tell you. What are these reforms? There are no more than 4. Basically, the subsidy removal. In the last 3 decades, everybody had been saying that was what we ought to have done. Indeed. That is what we should do. In the last presidential election, all the candidates said, we are going to get this done. But it took someone with courage and boldness to get that job done. And having done that, we can see today Nigeria, for the very first time in decades, refinery, the Dangote refinery, is now producing and is now selling locally. We've never had that done in almost 3 decades. Had the subsidy not been removed, I want to bet you that refinery will not be up and working right now. And more refineries are coming on stream. I hear of one in Akwa Ibom by Boa. I hear of another one in Edo corridors, and more modular refineries are coming in. The more this come in, more jobs will come in. The pricing will be competitive, and the pricing will be going downwards. And if that happens, there will be stability. And then there will be time we'll have self-sufficiency in the production of these petroleum products that will begin to export. And once we are exporting, you know that will earn us foreign exchange, strengthen the naira. So in that regard, that is panning out well for the country. When you talk about the tax reforms that will take effect from
January next year,
2026, it is not to increase taxes. It is rather to widen the tax nets. But if you look at the details, small businesses are the greatest beneficiaries, and low-income earners. There's that window that has been opened for them to have more money in their pockets to spend, and that for large corporates to pay what is fair and due to them. So at the end of the day, it's an expansion of the tax nets. It is not an increase in the tax burden. And then for the sharing formula between states and federal government and local government, all states will need to tie their belts, roll up their sleeves, increase productivity, so that the tax that will come to them will be higher by virtue of the formula that has been put in place by Mr. President, especially on the VAT. So it's good for Nigeria. And you know, most countries, some countries rely entirely on tax revenue. We are a lucky nation. We have resources giving us revenue. And now with this bold reform in our tax regime, bringing more resources, we will be better for it as a nation. I think finally the other reform that probably would have been is the foreign exchange liberalization, where you have let the market drive the exchange rates rather than having 2 different regimes, and people will be round tripping and profiteering from it without actual productivity to the nation. So if you look at it, those reforms are bold, those reforms are necessary. It took courage to get them done. If Mr. President was looking at the politics of it, he would never have done it, but he was looking about the future of the nation. Where will it get us to? How will it get us there? And he did it, and we should be proud of that. Now, the discussions have shifted. In the last 1 year, it's been food prices are going so high, everything is skyrocketing, we cannot put food on our tables. But in the last 2 months, those discussions have shifted. Prices of food are crashing, and you can verify. Those are no longer the topics.
But in spite of all of these, we're still seeing government's requests for new external borrowings. And that is a concern, given that, you know, we say government revenue, government earnings are increasing.
Absolutely.
So why do we still have to borrow?
Yeah, borrowing is not a new phenomenon in any economy.
Well, you borrow if you do not have enough.
No. You borrow, borrowing is not the issue. What do you borrow for? What is it applied to? In the case of Mr. President, it's strategic borrowing. He's borrowing and applying those funds to infrastructure in power.
So that means we do not have the funds.
No, I will give you an example.
To this infrastructure
we have funds.
Development.
We have funds. But what you want to achieve in 10 years, if you want to rely solely on your own revenue, you may not be able to achieve it until 40, 50 years. So what do? You go to the market where there are external funding, borrow from that funding, fund those infrastructure that will ultimately increase productivity, increase revenue to the country, to be able to pay over the time, so that within 10 years, what you would have waited for 50 years to get done, you get it done in 10 years. Your people are better off within that short period. So the point should not be, why are they borrowing? The point should be, what are they borrowing for? If it's for infrastructure, especially power, agriculture, road infrastructure, rail infrastructure, excellence. That's what all countries do. In fact, China borrows, America borrows. We can't be an exception. And you can only borrow if your credit rating is excellent. So with the stability of our economy, people are willing to lend us money. Some countries can't borrow because their ratings is poor. Ours is not. Why? We are stabilizing the economy. That's why.
So, when you listen to the opposition, they continue to talk about these increased borrowing of the federal government. And they say, it's an issue, especially when especially in terms of repaying it. It's like mortgage in the future, they say. This administration would just be maybe 4 years. If President Tinubu gets a second term, 8 years. By that time, most of these loans would not have been repaid. So it's like a burden that will be transferred to successive administrations and successive generations, which they say is the problem. And they have also politicized this issue and insisting that it will count on the ballot in 2027.
I'm glad you said they have politicized it. The question I would ask any of the opposition leaders would be, would you rather Nigeria not borrow to fund critical infrastructure and leave those gaps unattended to? In the past, people borrow to fund payment of salaries. That's not the case with this president. This president is borrowing strategically and matching them to things you can point to. Legacy projects, not just in one sector, not just roads.
Well, everyone agrees. Everyone agrees that there are needs for a lot of these infrastructure.
So what is the next part? How do we pay for these things? The increased revenue would help us in the long run to meet our obligations when they fall due. How do I mean? The tax reform will increase revenue to government, right? The removal of subsidy is increased revenue to government. So in the long run, there would be the payment plan and reserves that will be servicing and paying off these loans. But if you waited and said, let me rely strictly on what I make and I earn, you won't build any infrastructure. And when the time for election comes, people will ask questions.
And Nigerians agree on the need to build infrastructure, but they say if a scale of preference is done, what will be tops will be fighting poverty, providing jobs, and some other basic needs of the citizens. They agree that there are needs for infrastructures and all of that. But first, poverty, jobs, and some other immediate economic needs of citizens.
Top of the list would be security.
Indeed.
So you should need funds to fund critical assets of to fight insecurity. You borrow to do that. And whether you like it or not.
Some of the major driver of insecurity is also poverty and hunger.
No, you borrow to fund to ensure you deal with the issue of insecurity, which will in turn allow your people to go to farm, do their farming, increase productivity from their farm produce to serve the nation. So you can't say, don't borrow because you do not know how you would pay. Mr. President already put the mechanism on ground on how we can pay when they fall due. But those infrastructure are also directly going to be beneficial to the citizens. I mean, movement from one place to the other is critical to increase productivity. Roads needs to be built. Fast road networks needs to be built. Train transportation needs to be facilitated. That will be cheaper cost in transportation. So governance is not just a one-sided thing. It's all-encompassing.
But yes, we're getting into the election season now. And in fact, I would say it's already gaining momentum, even though campaigns have not officially started. And we have seen the strengthening with the coalescing of our political forces into the ADC. This, some people say, is giving the APC sleepless nights, even though you will not admit it. But we are already seeing, them, moving around, mobilizing people. And there seems to be a gravitation of people, including the electorate, towards the ADC ahead of the 2027 election. And all of this is because they say the reforms, the policies of the government, and all of that are no longer people-friendly.
Now, this is my question. First, coalition opposition is excellent for democracy. I love it. It puts the ruling party on their toes to be more effective and efficient. So it's an advantage for the ruling party, my party. Yes, People can talk, people can criticize, people can sell propaganda, but we'll match them with facts. And the facts are, would these elements and these leaders reverse the gains of the reforms? Definitely not. Because all of them wanted to remove subsidy while they were campaigning. In fact, I asked somebody recently, had President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan in 2012 pushed through the removal of subsidy, Nigeria would be way ahead where we are today. So leadership is not about drawing back because you fear an election in the future. Leadership is about doing the right thing at the right time, knowing fully well that in the long run, it's for the good of all Nigerians.
So lastly, before we go, we're out of time. Will you say President Bola Tinubu and the APC administration is in good stead ahead of the election, considering that they have opponents like Atiku Abubakar and even former President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan? Some people are saying he's considering throwing his hat in the ring. Quickly, in 30 seconds.
I would simply say, why are the leadership of most of the parties in other states that were not APC joining the APC? They know the facts. They want to follow a courageous leader who knows what to do at the right time. Damn the consequences that will come with the political issues, because he knows that he was elected to govern, not for politics.
All right, then. Thank you so much. A fine place to leave it. Well, that's our conversation with the former Deputy Governor of Kogi State.